Let's have a look at the latest opinion polls from the UK. Remember, polls, of course, got it wrong all the time, so nothing is to be taken out of this apart from, that's interesting. Conservatives apparently way in front. Labor, nowhere near winning. The Liberal Democrats, the expectation of them surging from either Conservatives who wanted to go somewhere else or Labor people who want to go somewhere else, not really happening. And a generic number that includes Brexit, and Brexit is in no position to win any seats anyway, and even the impact of them doesn't seem to have been hurting the Labor Party in the north. So, what's your sense of this thing, Bronwyn?
Well, the big thing is I think Boris will get the most number of seats. The question is, will he have a majority in his own right? You know, they had the Ulster Unionists before. Maybe they'll have to go back to that position. Which makes the deal that he's done on Brexit more difficult. Because they hate that deal. Well, that would make a no-deal exit more likely. So they've all moved down. I think both the Conservatives and Labor have moved down 1 point since last week, but the margin of error is probably 2 to 3. So heaven knows, but I would expect Boris to get the majority, and hopefully he gets a majority in his own right. Because I've got to say, again, I mean, you know, what is so misleading about this type of polling is, OK, nationally, well, but as always, you know, you could win 95% of the vote in one part of the country, but you, of course, require 50 and a bit in another part, well, not even 50 and a bit, but anyway. Get there with 40. Correct, a bit more than anyone else. So that's what makes it misleading. That's why I just don't believe any great big thumping result is on its way. But James, you know, I find Jeremy Corbyn, the more we've read about him, the more we've looked at him, to be so genuinely dangerous. And I certainly know that there are plenty of people in the UK who have enjoyed your commentary. So, well, as we head into this final stretch, what's your sense about what may be happening in the UK?
Well, I think it's not good for the Conservatives, what's happening at the moment. There's no doubt, talking to a bunch of people, there's something happening, and it's not going the Conservatives' way at the moment. I mean, they're still ahead of the polls. Let's start with that point. But how did they get there? The Conservative vote has risen by basically getting all of the Farage's vote that was with the Brexit Party back. They haven't taken much vote off Labor from you look at it. Labor's vote is rising, and it's coming all off the Lib Dem pile. So the Conservatives and the Labor Party vote has been rising in tandem with the decline of the Lib Dems and the Farages. As I said, the problem for Johnson is there isn't much Farage's vote left for him to get, so he's plateauing. There's plenty of Lib Dem vote that could still come over to Labor in the last week. And this is what happened last time. The Labor Party surged in the last week. This is a fourth-term government. They're asking for a fourth term. 3.9 million people enrolled to vote since the election was called, and 70% of them are under 35. It's going to be a winter election. People have to go out in the dark and vote, which you assume is going to favour younger voters, and it's going to prevent a lot of older voters getting out or make it less likely they're going to vote. The one thing you could be absolutely 100% certain of is that the Conservatives would be rather having this election in summer. The terrorist attacks have not played out well for Johnson in the same way that the terrorist attacks in 2017 did not play out for May, for the simple reason that they are in government, they are responsible. This guy was paroled on their watch. So they're not really getting the bump that you might assume from a law and order issue. I think that the New Statesman put it well today or yesterday. We are now within the sort of normal statistical error of a Corbyn victory. Don't be surprised if this is a hung parliament. I don't think he can get a majority in his own right, but the way that things are lined up at the moment, if Johnson doesn't get a majority in his own right, every other combination would seem to suggest that Corbyn is going to go into Downing Street.
I agree.
The DUP, which he depended on last time, is A, got its own issues, and B, has said point blank, it does not want to, it won't support him, and it's not interested in a, because of his Brexit deal. The SNP will not support him. The Lib Dems will not support him with the deal he's got. So we could be in for a really, really wild last week, and Friday the 13th, the day after polling day, could really be a nightmare on Downing Street. And I'm glad I'm heading over tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I can't wait for your stuff. Look, there's a lot of people in the UK who've loved James's particular fire-up about Corbyn last week, which was fun to watch. But, Nicholas, this isn't about Team Red, Team Blue. This is, I find Corbyn a genuinely scary option, and I know that people will think that I'm putting that out there to be, over the top. I find his policies outrageous. I find his personal views, his personal histories completely disqualifying. But I think this is. I've said it. I mean, you will all know. I've said it how long? All the way through. This is going to be a whole lot closer. This is a massive squeaker, and the numbers are starting to point that way. The lazy thing is to say, oh, they're 10 points in front of everyone else. Well, so what? In the places that love them, they can get 90% of the vote.
Yeah, I mean, look, sadly, I think most of the things you said about Corbyn are true. It's even sadder again that the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, is a complete buffoon also. And so, as we've lamented before, Britain sits there in its most challenging set of political circumstances, arguably since the Second World War, and the two main political leaders are just not up to the task. Such is Britain's fate at the moment. Look, I think the numbers do look a little better for the Conservatives than James quite articulately took us through. The reason for that is, yes, the polls have got it wrong in recent times, including in Australia for that matter. But when they get it wrong, I mean, it's because the election's very close, 51-49, and they had it, a point or 2 points out. On those numbers, the Conservatives got a 10-point lead over Labor. Now, let's not forget, UK has a different electoral system to Australia, so it's not like, at a local election or a particular seat in Australia where, the Liberals come first, Labor comes second, but then Green preferences flow to Labor and Labor leaps over the top of the Liberals. In the UK, it's a first-past-the-post system, so it's not like Liberal Dem preferences are going to flow to Labor and then they're going to leapfrog over the Conservatives on a seat-by-seat basis. So I think with those numbers, that vote being at 42 for the Conservatives, they're certainly in a pretty strong position. Although I do agree with Bronwyn and James that I can't see Johnson winning a majority in his own right.
Can I make one other point?
Of course.
He's not... One of the things that you've got to not admire about Corbyn, I suppose, but tactically kind of give him a bit of a nod, is he's not making the same mistake that Shorten made with his tax policy. Shorten's tax policy was aimed at people who kind of that sort of seep down into the middle class, right? Corbyn is going to soak the rich, and he's upfront about it. I'm going to raise a lot of taxes. I'm going to raise them off businesses. I'm going to raise them off high-income earners, and you, the great British public, will not pay anything. And that's, after all these years of austerity, that has greater appeal than you might expect. Where the money coming from argument is not something people are listening to. But he's also not making a mistake that Shorten made. Shorten took it was said he was going to raise a lot of money, but it was very difficult for a lot of people to point to anything that they were going to get from it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, there was dentistry, yes, there was kinder, but they didn't really pump that stuff up much. Corbyn ain't making that mistake. It's free stuff. It's a giant Christmas stocking of free stuff. Free internet, going to renationalise this, going to get rid of all fees for university students. There are naked bribes all through the Labor manifesto. And some of these have only been unveiled in the last few weeks. So people are looking at this going, oh, this is good and I'm not going to have to pay for it. Well, beauty.
And this is what's
and I think that explains a lot of why the Labor Party is upticking in these polls at the moment.
Well, and what's fascinating too is that, again, once the media narrative becomes it's tightening, well then, of course, it all starts to work for an opposition rather than a government. And there's always, whatever the version of a UK version of the October surprise is. But
James, I just don't understand how you can gloss over what a heinous person Corbyn is.
He ain't no fan.
I'm not.
I know you're
I'm
not a fan,
glossing it over,
but
Bronwyn.
even talking
It's
about
just
it
he
in
said
those
so much
terms-
about it in the past. He felt he didn't need to add anything further.
My
to
rant
that.
last week's got about 4,000 retweets in the UK. You know,
Fair
like-
enough.
Well
fair
done,
enough.
sir.
But fair enough. But again, tonight, to say it again, it's important that every time you talk about the man, you have to talk about just what a heinous person he is. I mean, his track record with his own party, with its anti-Semitism, with his own party members saying you can't vote for the party they belong to all of their lives.
I don't disagree with that, but what's really shocked me talking to people who know all this stuff, friends of mine, are saying I don't care. You know,
that
our
says
lives are. This guy, Johnson's not offering anything better, and they're not. These are people who some of them are agnostic about Brexit, but you know they can't afford. Their wages are in the toilet. They can't afford to buy a house. You know, they live in outer suburbs of London and they're commuting with train tickets that cost them thousands of pounds a year. You know, they don't want the status quo, and this is really dangerous. And they look at that and they just don't care.
Well, to hear that they don't care, that does send shivers down the spine. I really find it.
I've been in a lot of arguments with people about this over the last few weeks.
Will discount what a heinous person Corbyn is, and what would happen.
Don't disagree with that.
No, I agree. Well,